This is Unit 10 capstone project for my full semester long entrepreneurship class, and this project is called the Startup Business Project, where students will create and present their business using slides. This is the final summative semester project for the entire entrepreneurship course that I teach. The objective is that students will create and present a complete startup business presentation using a structured slide deck that demonstrates their understanding of key entrepreneurial concepts. The essential question, this is what I hope my students can answer by the end of the semester. How can you turn a business idea into a clear, realistic, and compelling business presentation using slides? In all of my offerings that I have on my Teachers Pay Teachers store, you'll find a teacher guide. It gives you the pacing for it. If you're buying this as part of my full semester long series, then all of these individual updates to this project are embedded throughout the semester. But if you're buying this as a one off, this should take you roughly about 2 to 3 weeks, if not even possibly more, for your students to do a thorough job. And you can see all of the pacing listed right here. This is what you will receive when you make the purchase of just this individual item. If it is part of the full semester, you'll see the same information, but in a different format, but that's a different conversation. So here's what it comes with. First is a quick start, how to use this project Google document, followed by the link to this video that you're watching right now. You receive a slide deck with the clickable links, which is this slide deck that you're going to see me present in just a moment here. You'll see the business project template that students have access to, and that is the final deliverable. It is 30 slides of template long. Next up from there is the business project and presentation rubric, because at the end of the entire project, there's a presentation component. The student startup business project checklist, and I have students, or I print this out for my students, so at the end of the project, once they're complete and ready to submit it, they have to go through the checklist and make sure that everything is done. There are a number of different financial slides that do get quite complicated, and as such, I provide you with a seasonal sales forecast spreadsheet, guided notes for that financial section, just in case that's something that you get lost or confused on, or your students need support with. And then I also created an additional YouTube video instructional link that is solely covering those 4 financial slides to make sure that you feel comfortable and confident teaching and your students know how to solve for everything there. What you are going to be creating with this. So what my students will be doing, or your students will be doing at the end of this, is a startup business presentation with a full slide-based business plan. So the realistic plan is going to include so much more than this, but at a high-level overview, the problem, solution, target market, revenue, financials, marketing, and branding, and more. This is our opportunity to turn an idea into something very real, think like an entrepreneur, and build something that you can be proud of. I've had students use this information to, one, compete in regional competitions and win, but two, we've also used this for college applications, and I've had students get into some quite prestigious schools using this document as a submission. Next up, here we go. Let's break down these 30 slides. I'm going to go one by one. I'm putting 2 slides on each individual one just to kind of speed run through this. I have my students open with an intro slide, and this is all part of the template. So the general idea is the student will have their student-facing Google slide template open, but then next to it, they'll also have a Canva slide template that makes sense for whatever the business is that they're creating. I prefer using Canva because it provides you with a more polished, professional type of a presentation outlet. Now that we have the presentation template chosen, my students will then use Canva Logo Maker to create a basic logo for their business. They can do a screenshot. I would recommend that they use their Canva for Education type of an account. I did make a video which I've also embedded into the preview area where you can watch how to use Canva if you or your students are not familiar with it. Slide number 2, if you do allow your students to work with a teammate, this is where we do a quick introduction of who we are as presenters, because this whole presentation is almost Shark Tank style, where you are pitching to a group of investors that might want to potentially purchase your thing. So who are you? And in this case, we're going to have headshots of these entrepreneurs. What are your roles? Maybe one student's the CEO, maybe one is the CMO or COO or CFO. If you do buy my full semester, you'll see what all those roles are. Slide 3. This is the hook. This is where you get your audience's attention and grab their thoughts so that they will lock in and stay with you for the full presentation. Most successful businesses share one thing in common. They solve people's problems at a price that people are willing to pay for. As such, what is the problem that your business solves? So the students on slide 4 are outlining, here's the problem that our consumer encounters. And slide 5 is, this is the solution. We've found a way to solve that problem that our consumers have. And the next slide up makes sense. Well, what does your business do? If we know what your solution is, like that's ultimately the solution of the problem. Well, what do you as a business do? Next up is how does your business make money? So you need to think about your main revenue sources here. Slide 8. At this point, the sharks in the room or investors, they now know what your general business idea is. Now we want to see, again, the name of the business, the logo, and then the slogan. The slogan should be something catchy. This is a quick kind of a segue transitionary slide into us talking more about the business as a whole. We need to talk about where this business is going to be located. I have my students navigate this using loopnet.com. This should work for your region. I don't know of any locations that are not using LoopNet, and it's generally a commercial real estate for lease website where you can identify how much something would cost, and I show all of the math in a prior unit as to how a student can come up with that, what the monthly lease obligation would be. I also have my students on this slide either do a drawn, a digital form, or even an AI rendering of the storefront of their business. Now that we know where your business is going to be, we want to know, where do you want to take this business? This is the vision statement. What is the future of your business? And if we know the future of your business, how do we get there? We get there with the mission. This is what the business is all about. What's the purpose? Why do you exist? With all of those pieces in line, now we need to start talking about, how do we separate ourselves from the competition? If we know who the competition is, it is time for us to perform a SWOT analysis. This is the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths and weaknesses are things internally which we can control as a business owner. Opportunities and threats are externally, but we can still adapt and make changes to our business so that we can make sure that we are meeting those demands. Competition is the next slide up, and we do a full compare and contrast competitive analysis table so that you can look at 2 direct competitors and 1 indirect competitor and compare it to your business in 4 different factors. If we know who your competition is, we need to know, well, what is the main thing? What are the activities that your business needs to be doing? So, for example, how will your business build and maintain relationships? How do you market your business? How do you deliver your product or service? And who's going to help you with this? The people that are going to help you with this are your key partners. So, for example, this could be suppliers, this could be other organizations, this could even be other businesses that are possibly even competitors. If I know who my competition is, if I know what my vision and what my mission is, my problem and my solution, now I can talk about my competitive advantage, the thing that sets me apart, my unique value proposition. Here's why people come to me instead of somebody else and how I build brand insistence. If I'm going to build brand insistence, I need to know who my customer is. And so my customer is going to be broken down into multiple fashions. For example, it's going to be my demographic. Where are they geographically? How do they act behaviorally? And then also, how do they think psychologically? So this is my target customer. It's my who and how they behave. Now that I know how they behave, I need to know how I will manage those relationships with customers and measure my relationships with those customers using key metrics known as KPIs. These are key performance indicators. And so I have my students identify 3 to 5 KPIs so that they can track their progress as they get this business up and moving. And once it's up and moving, we need to know how to distribute this product or service to the masses using a variety of distribution channels, and they must pick which one makes the most sense for their business. On to the finance slides. We define what is one of the primary units, the main thing that your business sells, and the economics of that one individual unit. So they have to calculate first, well, what will I sell that item for? And how much are the cost of goods sold, or COGS, in order to create one item? So if I'm making a cheeseburger, how much do I sell it for, minus all of the expenses that go into making it? For example, this could be the cost of the materials, the bun, the cheese, the meat. Then I have the cost of labor, and we do all the calculation in one of my slides for the full semester. And then lastly might be a cost for other variable material or variable expenses, non-material expenses. We take all of that information, we take our sales price minus expenses, leaves us with the profit per unit. If we know our profit per unit, now we can start looking at what some of our fixed expenses are for the full month. If we know fixed expenses for the full month, as well as some of the variable expenses for the full month, we can now start talking about revenue streams. Where does the money come from? Is it all regular revenue that just has no seasonality, or is it seasonal? On to the final slide of the finance section, slide 25. This tends to be one of the more complicated ones. It's the year one financial projection, and I've made a full 10-minute video to accompany this that you can also find here on my YouTube channel to watch and make sure that you are following along, where you estimate your total units that are sold for the year and then determine how many units you need to sell just to break even to see if you are even financially viable. Once we move away from the finances, we move on to the marketing heavy side of things. I have my students create a homepage website. If they're working in a group, I suggest that they use Canva Website Builder just because it allows for better collaboration. And if you're working individually, I would recommend using Wix just for its AI and advanced features and how you can create the most professional website possible in the most seamless way that you can. If we've made a website, what if people come to our location? We need to show them how to get back to us in the future, or how do they contact us? How do they call us? How do they email us? Maybe I'm at a trade show and I need to know, or I want to hand out information to somebody that I meet. Well, I need to come up with a business card as well as a branded item. I have my population in my classes use Canva's business card maker, as well as create other collateral for marketing purposes. We create a social media post using Canva's social media maker. And finally, we close out with students creating a 1 minute or less commercial or reel for social media style type of commercial that would entice the investors to potentially buy this product or service. And then a conclusion that's strong ends with the logo. They summarize their business in 1 to 2 sentences and close with a formal closing such as that concludes our presentation. The final presentation requirements are then provided, and this is where they pick any 10 of the 30 slides of their choosing with a few parameters built into it, which they will polish a presentation for and deliver it to the class so that everybody knows exactly what it is that your business is offering, and I can vote on it, and you could even get other investors or local business owners in here or other adults to watch these presentations and make a determination as to which business is most viable that they would invest in. And I always close out with asking my students for feedback to help refine future instruction, what helped them learn the most in this unit, what is still unclear, and a suggestion for next time so that I can continue to get better. I appreciate you considering this resource. You can find more of my resources on my Teachers Pay Teachers page and all of these social media outlets as well on Instagram, TikTok, my Teachers Pay Teachers store, and YouTube, as well as Pinterest. Thank you for teaching the most valuable class on campus.